Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. I want to thank each and every one of you so much for listening. Please subscribe, it helps promote the podcast. We got some big news. The Pistons just signed Malik Beasley to a 1 year, $6 million contract, which is a bargain in my opinion. And Beasley started 77 out of 79 games for the playoff team, the Milwaukee Bucks, last year. And he is an incredible shooter throughout his career. And this past year, he shot 41.3% on threes, and you cannot leave him alone. So he shot 41.3% on threes, and everybody knew in the scouting report, don't let him shoot the three because he's lights out. And so again, I always go back to like Stu. Stu shot 38%, but nobody guarded him. They are guarding Beasley. So everybody, he is going to demand so much help. Teams aren't going to be able to help on Cade or Ivy or anybody else that drives to the basket. So he is definitely create some space. A lot of the money has dried up on free agency. So now you're going to see, I think, a lot more trades happening since most of free agency money is gone. And the Pistons have been patient, and they still have 26 million or so money. And even with the Beasley contract, we can sign him. There's these exemptions that you can sign players to that don't count against your salary cap, like the room exception, which we could do, and sign him to that, and that wouldn't even count against that cap space. Since we're under the cap, then you're allowed to do that. So anyway, he started 77 out of 79 games for the Milwaukee Bucks, a playoff team, and I noticed watching him that he was really working on defense. He was really putting forth effort. He's 6'4", so again, we're going to talk about the rotation. So it's getting crowded, even at the guard position with um, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jaden Ivey. There's just how many minutes are there to go around, but I guess that's going to be something for JB Bickerstaff to work out. But he's a quality player, and we only have him for 1 year. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But he averaged 11.3 points a game, 3.7 rebounds, 1.4 assists, and again, shot 44%, but 41% on threes, which is the big number. So he's played 10 years. He's only 27 years old, but he's shot a career 39%. So yeah, he's good. And I'm surprised that no other playoff teams, he's not the tallest guy, but a lot of the money's just gone, and people that didn't need, a shooter, they didn't have the money. But we're going to talk today a lot about a bunch of players. There's players like we need a backup big guy. And so Paul Reed just minutes ago, got released by the 76ers. And there's some of these Piston fans like him. He's only 6'9", but he's tough. And he's only 25, and he played all 82 games last year, 7.3 rebounds. And so he's tough, 54% from the floor and 37% on three. So he's a guy that the Pistons could go in and grab. There's also possibility of trading for my dream, Wendell Carter Jr. from Orlando. And again, it's interesting with Wendell Carter Jr. that that they just signed Batazi and Jonathan Isaac and Mo Wagner to extensions. All those three big guys. And Wendell Carter's minutes went down this past year from 30 to 25. So is he going to be expendable, the odd man out? What do we have to trade them that they would want? So it'll be interesting. Wendell Carter averaged 11 points and 7 rebounds, and he shot 37% on threes. So if we could get him for a center, that would be out of this world. So we'll see what happens. His career numbers were even better than last year's numbers, but he averaged the 2 prior years to last year, he averaged 30 minutes a game, and then last year only averaged 25 minutes a game. So we'll see. I would love Wendell Carter, and I still think the center position is dried up. Everybody in the past, you always could say, oh yeah, I just go pick up a free agent center for cheap. And there's not many out there right now. So we'll see what happens if we can get Paul Reed. But again, I would love to get Wendell Carter. But yeah, Malik Beasley was a great deal. And like I said, we were holding out to do this deal because there was a chance of us being involved in a 3-team trade. And so there's the one big free agent out there still, is DeRozan. And DeRozan is a great player that plays for the Bulls. But if they did a sign and trade, so there's talk about Sacramento wanting to get DeRozan, but I've heard that the Spurs, I hate the Spurs, that the Spurs might be the third team involved to make the money work by doing a sign and trade for DeRozan. So still the Pistons could end up getting in on that, but it's just as a lot of things are going to be happening right now. There's going to be a lot of different things. Like I said, I think the trade market is going to start. They kind of wait till all the free agency stuff is done and then the trades. So now there's just a bunch of minimum trades. There is Tyus Jones is out there. You know, we talked about Pistons possibly getting a backup point guard, and he is phenomenal. He's 28 years old, but he's only 6'1", but he had a heck of a year, like 12 points, 7.3 assists, and he shot 49% from the floor and 41% on three. So I'm shocked that some team hasn't got him. So we might be able to be used in a sign and trade for him. We might be able to get him cheap, just like we did Malik Beasley. And so, again, a lot of things can happen. And I just am excited to see what happens. But we don't know that the Pistons, how they're going to use that extra cap space that they have. You know, we have a pretty full roster. The challenge is, so we start looking at what are the rotations going to be, and I always go back to, you'd always try to see how many minutes there are. So say like at the forward position, if Tobias Harris is going to play 30 minutes a game, which he's probably going to, and so how many minutes are there left over? So for the two forward positions, and a lot of our guys I think can play the 3 and the 4, even though I'd like to see us get at least one guy on the roster that's a 4 that can stretch the floor a little bit and stuff. But you know that if Tobias plays 30 minutes, that leaves only 36 minutes for Ausar and Ron Holland. And again, Ron Holland might not play this year as much, but yeah, it's just if Cade plays and then Tobias Harris and Duren and Ausar and Hardaway and Ivy and Stu and Holland and Fontecchio and Sasser and now Malik Beasley, that's 11 guys right there. And we know playing 11 guys is not a formula for success. But yeah, so again, if Harris played 30 minutes, and I think that Fontecchio has to play 30 minutes at least. So that's out of the two forward positions, that's 60 minutes. There's 96 minutes for the two forward spots. And so that would leave only 30 minutes or 36 minutes for Ausar and Holland. And of course, Holland could play some of the two guard also, but except now we got another two guard. And like I said, how happy are people? You know, I think players like Tim Hardaway Jr. aren't going to be happy in the locker room if their minutes are cut on a mediocre team. So it's just going to be a challenge for Bernie Bickerstaff. Talked about Bernie Bickerstaff, and you know the speculation is, the rumors out of Cleveland are that that Mitchell wanted him out before he signed the contract. That was kind of helped get him signed to his extension, and that he wasn't fond of Bickerstaff, and so who knows why, and who knows if that was on Bickerstaff or maybe it was more on Mitchell. So the Cavs last year, you know, he had 2 good years with the Cavs, but the Cavs are loaded. The Cavs, I mean, Mitchell and Garland and Mobley and Allen are all all-stars, and they're all young guys. And so that's a stacked team, really. But I will say this, last year, I can't remember all the details, but there was a stretch where the Cavs had every one of those 4 guys I think were out. All 4 of those all-star guys were out, and they went like 11-2. So that gives you some hope and thinking that Bickerstaff is really good. So, but it just remains to be seen. A lot of guys have been gone off the board. You know, I wanted the Pistons to get Taurean Prince, but he signed with the Bulls now. People wanted Caleb Martin. He just signed with the 76ers. So, you know, a lot of different options are being drawn away. So, like I said, the Orlando Magic is going to be interesting, why they signed all those big guys. And so we just can hope that we get, I know I'm jumping back and forth a little bit, but I just love Wendell Carter Jr. He's 6'10", he's only 25 years old, and he's got a cheap contract remaining. He's in his descending. 2 years. This next year they owe $12 million for him, and the following year his contract's only $11 million. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. We have Hardaway Jr. again. Like I said, there's a thing with having these veteran players in the locker room, and there's something to be said for that, to have a good veterans in the locker room, and to have guys that can score the ball and shoot consistently from three. So I do think that our team is improved. It is going to be a challenge for any coach to divvy out the minutes and figure out the rotations. And we're going to talk more about that in another podcast. But keep your ears open for Paul Reed, Wendell Carter, Tyus Jones, and any three-way trades that we might be able to help facilitate. But the big thing is we want it to get, we have all these young guys on our roster that need to be playing and need to develop some. And we need to get some assets. We need to get some trade assets for the future. And that helps you with trades. It helps you add younger pieces. And we are going to probably move off some of these players at some point. So thank you for listening. Be the reason that someone feels wanted and needed. I'm going to hop on anytime I hear some breaking news, but be the reason, again, that somebody feels cared for. And go Pistons.